So I came here today to talk about love, the ultimate soul food. And thank you, Randy, for your love. That meditation was just so awesome, wasn't it? It was just like, oh, I'm just kind of buzzing with the good. Let me define some terms. Love and soul food. Let's start with soul. You know, soul is a word that we knock around and we use it maybe, or we don't use it. I don't know how you use it, but to me, soul is that part of us that's intangible in some way. It's the part that kind of music catches and gets moving. You know, it's the part that's just life itself. It's a beautiful part of what and who we are. And so, I think in a service like this, and with a meditation like that, and with music like this, and we're here feeding our soul. We're feeding that intangible part of us that knows who we are in a different way than we think about when we're out in the world and worrying about the concerns of life. It reaches something different, and that for me is what the soul is. And then the food is what we feed the soul. And it may be that we need remembering sometimes, or reminding sometimes, to feed that part of ourselves. Yeah? Yeah, okay. We're on the same page. Because life is very full, as we heard from the reading, that life is very, very full, and the fuller it is, then the more hurry we go, the harder it is to stop and say, this is not really what I know I am. This is not really who I know the true core of me is. And then what is that? Well, we talk about it in service, we talk about it in the music, we talk about it in the meditation, we talk about it in the readings. That life that lives in us, that beingness that we are, that God self, that spiritual essence of who we are, is most of what we are. I was in one of my local teaching circles the other night, and we were talking about this, and I was telling the story of back in the good old days when I used to stay here in the winter instead of running off to Mexico because the winters are just too severe here. And I spent 5 months in a little village on the coast of Mexico, and there's people there from Calgary. Winter? Northern California? I don't think you understand the meaning of the word. So anyway, but back in the old days, I used to stay here in the winter, and I'd have fires in my fireplace, and I'd insert, and I could burn the fire for 3-4 days, putting wood in there, and then I'd get all done, or I'd stop and let it cool off, and then I'd take out a little bucket of ashes. And I said, well, where'd all the wood go? It seemed to me that if a tree was made out of dirt and minerals and things like that, then when I burned it, I'd have a whole, buckets and buckets of that. Then I thought, well, wait a minute. When I go into the forest, like I go for a walk in Armstrong Redwoods, there's all these huge trees. They've been there for thousands of years. They're creating tree out of ground, right? I mean, they eat the minerals and everything. But the ground isn't sinking. Why doesn't the ground sink? Why isn't it like you have to walk down steps to walk in Armstrong Redwoods if all that tree is made out of dirt? And kind of got it. That tree isn't really made out of very much dirt or minerals or the solid stuff of what we know here. The tree is made out of sunshine, out of the light. It's up there collecting the light, and the light is pretty much the body of what the tree is, and that light is the spiritual force that comes here and creates what's here. And it takes a little bit of minerals to kind of make this illusion of form of the tree, but it's mostly light. It's mostly spirit energy. It's mostly God stuff. So when I burn it, the light comes back out of it, yeah? the sun warmth and brightness comes out of the wood again, warms my house, and what's left is this little bit of dust that is that barely tangible part of the tree. I got to thinking, that we're the same way. You know? That, and I actually spread someone's ashes in Mexico when I was there last winter. Beautiful ceremony out in the water with flowers. It was gorgeous. And there was very much of that person in the box. Where'd it go? Well, it went back to light too. And so when we talk about what I am and who I am, we're talking about mostly something intangible, not something that is solid. Right? And if we look at the rest of the world, if we understand that about ourselves, and then we look into the rest of our physical world, we can see it the same way. Wow. It looks very real. Was it Albert Einstein, I think, that said, the reality is an illusion, albeit a very persistent one. We are so, well, I mean, look, it's solid, it works, it talks, it moves, it dances to soul music, it does what it does. And yet almost all of what appears to be here is that force of spirit, that divinity, that God force, and not solid matter. If we could tune in with one of those electron microscopes, we could see that it's mostly little points of light with space in between. That's what we are. And the same as when we look into the stars at night and we see all the space between those points of light. If we could look closely enough at our bodies, we'd see the same thing. And we would stop, if we stopped and thought about that, we'd say, if there's really no physical boundary to me because it's all open, and the air is here, and then there's something over there, or some person out there, and we're like this space and little points of light, then the space seems to be the predominant thing that's here, that divinity. And the little points of light, of course, are created by the divinity, so it's all the same thing. When we say it's all one thing, of course, that's what we're talking about. The creator and the created is the same. It's like there's air on the outside of the house and there's air on the inside, but when you open the window, you realize that they're all the same. And if we open the window of this illusion that we're solid and have a boundary, then it opens our awareness to the idea and the fact that there is no boundary, that the intelligence that's in this universe, the divinity in this universe, is everywhere in the universe, omnipresent, and we're it. That's my point. We're it. And the part of us that is so we have all this one intelligence through the whole universe, this spiritual essence, this godness through the whole universe, but somehow it manifests itself very individually. All of creation is created by that same intelligence, force, power, God, and it gets individualized in an infinite number of forms. Even if we look at the room here, we can see that every one of us is completely different. We think differently, we dress differently, we look different, we act different. And multiply that times just the multitudes of humans that have existed in this universe before, now, and forever. We see how that infinite intelligence can manifest itself in infinite forms. But then if we look outside and we see trees and animals and insects and galaxies and the air molecules, all of it, not only created but animated by that force. And that's what we are. And don't think we have a very good language for that yet. So that's why I use the word soul as a word to try to describe that individual, well, the infinitely, cosmically, everywhere force that animates our individual expression of that force. Could call it anything. But I couldn't think of very many good words that I have for that. Divinity, spirit. This morning I'm calling it soul. And so, soul food. Love is the ultimate soul food. So how are we going to feed? What food do we give to nurture that soul, that essence of us that's the same as everything, and at the same time in some mysterious way unique to each of us, and unique to every aspect of creation. Every plant, every flower, everything is unique and different, while being exactly the same in its unity in spirit. And we talk about that, of course, and it's the underlying message of all of the services and all of the work and meditation and everything. I'm always looking for practical ways to look at it and practical applications for it. So, we have that, let's say we have that part of ourselves, the soul, and we want food for the soul. How do we feed that part of us? I'm suggesting with love. That was easy. But what do we mean by love? The idea of love and the way we use the word love. I wrote once a long time ago, and I'm going to use it again, that in the urban legend they say that the Eskimos have, well, I'll make it 37 different words in their language for ice and snow. And I think that's in some way very true, assuming that they live in that environment of ice and snow, and their lives depend on it, and they need very clear language to be able to express with each other what the conditions of that are. And makes a lot of sense. And yet we have this word love that we use for everything. I just love Jerry Garcia's, ice cream flavor. I love my new car. I love my new iPhone. I love you. I love myself. I love my cat. I love this weather after the fog clears, not before the fog clears, but after the fog clears, I love the weather. And maybe we don't have a very good language about love because we haven't identified ourselves as living in the environment like Eskimos in snow. We haven't had to have a good language about the nuances of love because perhaps we failed to recognize that we live in that realm all the time and we need to navigate it with each other and with ourselves with language. Yeah? What about that? Yeah. People have tried in the past, you've probably heard like agape, for that grand love that transcends everything, and connection, familial love that we have with our family connections. And people have tried to introduce these other terms, but I don't hear them being used. They're just they haven't worked for us yet. We haven't gotten into these habits of having different ways of expressing love. And maybe it's because so far we've forgotten to identify ourselves as love. Because that force that I was talking about that creates this universe, our soul and all of that, we call it life, and we can call it divinity, and we can call it a lot of things, but it's also love. What could be more loving, what could be more giving than the force that creates each of us so beautifully? It's got to have something in there as love. It might not be personal. I don't think My idea of God is not somebody sitting on a cloud in a white robe saying, I haven't had an Allan for a while. Something, boom. I don't think he's doing that. So maybe it's not, and I'm going to make him better than everybody else. Well, yeah, God loves me more than he loves you. I don't think it's that way. I hope I'm wrong, actually. No. I don't think that that's how it works, but there is an element of what we could call love in this creative, intelligent force that's created this amazing magical mystery that we live in as in. So, the love that I like to talk about is acceptance. That when somebody totally accepts me, totally sees me, totally knows me, and totally accepts me the way I am, I feel loved. Don't you guys? Do you? If I tell you right now, I see you and I love you exactly the way you are, and exactly the way you are not, can you take that in and accept it? If I tell you, you are absolutely perfect, exactly the way you are, and I see that in you, can that go in and warm you? Or do you say in your mind somewhere, oh, well, wait. If you really knew, if you really knew who my judge says I am, you wouldn't be saying, you would, or what are you up to? What do you want from me? So just look and see, feel it right now. I love and accept each and every one of you exactly as you are in this moment, because I see the divine perfection of you as you are. Now listen inside. Can you take that in, believe it, accept it, and know it as the truth of yourself? That this divine force that has created me and animates me is perfect. And if it created me, I have to be perfect too. That acceptance is what I call love. And if we can't hear that or take it in or say it to ourselves when we look in the mirror in the morning, then we need to be getting some soul food over to the part of us that needs to hear that until it makes it true. A while back I was offering this idea of love being acceptance, and somebody went home and said, well, I don't even know what acceptance really means. I don't know how to do it. And she looked in the dictionary somewhere, and there were definitions, and down the list was one that said, readiness to receive. And I love that. And I can't say, I am ready to receive you without doing this. When we see somebody, we prepare to give them a hug.
Yeah.
Ready to receive. Forgive them, Father, they know not what they do. I receive them as they are. Try it without hitting your partner. Open, feel that openness. Tell me you are ready to receive me.
Ready to receive you, Allan.
God, that was beautiful. So, if that's the love that we're using to feed the soul, then we can say that that love is the ultimate soul food. That love feeds us and feeds the divinity in us and feeds our mind to remind our mind of the truth of who we are. We're not the worries and the cares and the fears and the busyness and the relationships and the outfits and any of that, although it's, it's nice to have a costume. But who we are is that inner, intangible essence of the divine. And we can feed that truth to our mind, really, to feed that love, that acceptance, that readiness to receive who and what we are. And from doing that for ourselves, when it's really real inside of ourselves, then we see it happening and to the rest of the outside world, the illusion, the outside world. And that's when we fall in love with life. That's when we fall in love with creation. And through creation, that's when we really fall in love with God. Let's go inside for just a moment. Divine Presence, Spirit, God. Help us to remember this very truth of who and what we are. Help us to cast aside the voices of judgment or fear inside of us, the doubters that want to keep us safe and small and not opening to receive your beautiful, beautiful kingdom. Even as I speak out to you as though you are outside of me or us, Divine Presence, I know the truth and I speak the truth that you are here and part of us. You are love. You are what animates us. You are what created us. You are me. Let us rest in that truth and take it with us into the day and feed that truth. Feed our souls with love. And so it is. Amen.